Good morning, Bitcoiners. Hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Who could complain on a day like today? I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to be complaining. Things are going great. We're in the golden age, folks. We're going to be enjoying the golden age more than ever today. We're having a good time with the old golden age. Let me share the screen and see what folks are saying in the chat this morning from the beloved folks over on Rumble. You're up first. Let's see what the chat is saying. We got happy Friday, everyone. Indeed, it is Friday. I forgot. It's Friday. It's Friday. Jack2K, good morning, Nolan and Great Awakening crew, and happy Friday after our severe weather last night. I saw it. We are in tornado season. I'm glad you made it. Going LA late says, good morning, Nolan and gang. SpaceX might be blasting off this morning, but it will be Bitcoin that remains in financial orbit for many years to come. That is part of the theme today. You're going to see all of it. You're going to see the SpaceX blast off, the new system, Bitcoin center stage. We're going to be talking about it. Yo, Chatelet, Escape the Matrix. Morning, fine folks. Morning, Charlosky. Seabirger17, good morning, peace. Good morning, pardon me. Blessed are the peacemakers indeed. T-Dog, yo in the house. Morning. Narwhal Tacos. I thought Bitcoin stopped running this morning, but it turns out I was looking at every other market that can only trade when they're allowed to trade. Exactly, Narwhal. Good morning, Count and crew. What's new? You'll see lots new today. Good morning, team. God bless. Jesus is King 04. Escape the Matrix. G was awesome on Hank's show yesterday. I missed it. I would love to see it. Good morning, gang. Good morning, Soap Miner. Narwhal Tacos enjoying his coffee. We got folks over in YouTube as well. Johnny Midas, happy Friday, Bitcoiners. Tommy DOU says, good morning, Bitcoiners. SunTech working great in the Midwest. That's great to hear, Tommy DOU. We need that SunTech operational. Happy Friday from Pensacola. Says Comedy Mysterious World. We love Pensacola. We've never been, but it's one of the places we're dying to go. I've never been on the Gulf Coast side, so I've been dying to go there. Good morning, y'all. Good morning, Deep Stank. Hope you're doing well. Fiat Apocalypse. Is that a fruit fly in my house? Good morning, Bitorners. We love the Bitorners and the Bitcoiners and everybody. We're lovers, not haters. Young Tommy, good morning, friends. How do I open a long position on wood chippers? Exactly. The wood chipping is getting going. We're going to be dropping people from space soon. But wood chippers work. That's the low-cost approach to dealing with many of our problems. Wood chippers are acceptable. We like wood chippers. We're not anti. If I had to choose between wood chippers and space dropping, I would choose space dropping, but indeed, there's a cost, right? It's a very fiat decision to drop people from space. I admit there is a cost-effective, more Bitcoin way to assassinate fiat sludge people. And wood chipper is pretty much at the top of the list. I can agree. I can get down with that. But you know me. We are also children of the fiat regime, and if we get to pay for the space drops using trash tokens, I say let's opt for the trash token version. Eventually, it'll be a negligible difference in terms of Bitcoin, so we won't really be thinking of it that way. And plus the views would just be so great. But I think you'd get pretty great views on a wood chipper approach too. I wouldn't doubt the wood chipper ratings. I think they'd be high. I think you'd get a lot of virality out of it. I think you'd see a lot of clips shared around, as gross as they are. I predict industrial wood chippers similar to these data servers the size of Manhattan. The only thing the debt cabal fears is rotting in an American prison. They don't fear death. Yeah, well, they're going to get their choice, I guess. Great show with Tom Luongo. Still perplexed with why it got pulled from YouTube. Been pulled already? Well, I don't know if it was. So it looked like the link they gave something in the YouTube transfer to X might have been the problem. I don't know. I think X does some stuff to YouTube links like it does to Substack links and all that. So it might have been X. I'm not sure it was YouTube. But again, I do love the fact that in my made up statistic, which I have no way of verifying, but I think it's true, just given the size of the accounts and the amount of content I've got canceled over time. The last time I was on BTC Sessions, I got not just my show pulled, I got the whole channel pulled. The whole channel got pulled for like 72 hours or something crazy when I was on it in 2024, in the summer of 2024. And I think I was on one other time since then, but I remember that. And then I got the Simply Bitcoin feed pulled in a similar time frame. And I got the Bitcoin Magazine channel taken down in 2022. So it was down a few days ago, but maybe it's back up. Yeah, I listened to it on Spotify. Yeah, it is up. I was able to see the comments, and don't even bother with the comments because it's all that, wow, great show. I agree. CRX24 is going to be the biggest new coin. Like, it's all those scam things in there. You can get a sense of some of the comments, but they're pretty, let's say, lost in the mix of bots, which is exactly why YouTube doesn't want that kind of content on the site. And like, we know that, right? It's not a mystery. So there you go. Damn, YouTube is so gay. It sure is. It sure is. So I believe it was up the whole time. You just had to go into YouTube to access. So I don't know whose fault it was that the link was troubled and you couldn't share it and all that stuff. I suspect YouTube did it, but I won't let X off the hook either on this. But I don't think it's about me or anything in the case of X. I just don't think they like linking to other social media like YouTube. And as we know, X has done a bunch of stuff to prevent Substack and other platforms from sharing on X, which they've been upfront about and transparent about. Just like YouTube has been transparent about not wanting Bitcoin and crypto content. Like, let's be clear on that, right? We don't need to hallucinate enemies. We know they don't like us. Let's just keep it at that, right? That's fine. It's the lying we don't like. If YouTube wants to make a decision not to have crypto on it, just take a look at the comments and you get why. It's probably not worth it for them. It introduces so much incentive to scam on things that have nothing to do with crypto. And of course, we understand the difference with all of this stuff when it comes to Bitcoin, but you know, the algorithm isn't going to take time to figure that difference out. So that's just it. So we don't worry about it. We like it. We wear it as a badge of honor. That's why I have now crowned myself the person responsible for the most amount of censored hours on the internet with respect to Bitcoin content. I do believe it's me. Weirdly, I've never ever gotten a strike on my own channel. Well, I don't know if it's weird. We're definitely throttled over on YouTube. It's crazy. You can't, even when I see the number of live viewers I have on the counter here, when I go and check behind that, no one can check how many views I have for like 24 hours. I can behind the hood if I go into the YouTube Studio software where you can see all this stuff. I can see my view count. It is such a lie that usually my concurrent live viewers, if I remember them, which I normally do because it's listed at the top of the thing when I see it, it will always be higher in live viewers than the view count will give me when I go and look for whatever reason. So that's why when you watch my show on YouTube the day of but not live, you'll see it's always saying processing, right? Which means you're not getting any data, which means all of the shareability and everything is screwed. So they just don't bother censoring me. They just don't bother giving me strikes. They just throttle, and that's fine. We get it. And we don't care because we're winning, and the sun is up and Bitcoin's running. Why am I going to care about stupid YouTube, right? We don't give a shit. We're doing great. We got Bitcoin. We're doing fine. I don't have my watch on. Let me see. What are we at? It's charged. I can put it back on. We're up. We're at 63,000 US trash tokens. And with an operational sun, we definitely are not going to be crying about YouTube. right? We definitely are not going to be crying about YouTube. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. I've got some really, really good fake news today. You're going to love it. Here's some excellent, excellent ones. We'll stop by a little bit. We'll find out what's going on with the thermostats. I have a little bit of thermostat update. Nothing big on the thermostats today, but important, right? Is that the one? No. Wow, that's fine. I can start with that one. So here we. What's going on? What's going on? Why is everything so slow all of a sudden? There you go, guys. We have it in Florida now, finally. What's the best temperature to set your AC in Florida, right? In a Florida heat wave. What AC setting should you use to stay cool without going broke, right? Experts say, so here indeed, it's the same. Thank God. Thank God. I remembered that number. Experts suggest 78 degrees. So there you go. And when you're away, set your thermostat to a warmer temperature, such as 82, instead of turning it off. Okay, that's much better idea because you're going to save money. So that's what's going on in Florida. We also have the number for Detroit. What should I set my air conditioner to? See what experts recommend. So here we see with heat indexes reaching the 100 degrees in some areas of the state. This weekend, Michiganders have been turning on their air conditioners and turning down the thermostat. But they have questions, right? They have questions. And of course, we see here it's the same in Detroit. It's 78 degrees in Detroit. So we're getting there. We're getting there. And we have this new, people talking about the World Cup and what's going on. We get this news out of Canada. Historic. Whoops, that's not what was supposed to happen. There's something wrong with my, something's wrong here. Things are not sharing as they normally do. Let me know if there's any glitching with the broadcast, please. If you're seeing any weird glitches, I might need to reset or something here. I got issues. So here, historic World Cup may also, we're not sure, come with historic emissions. Again, I've been telling you the World Cup's been going on since, I guess, 1930 now. And even in 1930, in the midst of the Great Depression in America and around the world, we were counting the emissions. We have this great data set. And, all the boats that traveled, because they didn't have jets back then. So every team, the Uruguay is far, right? Uruguay was where they held the first World Cup. And everyone in the world had to travel to Uruguay, probably by boat. And we don't know right now, right? But we have the data, right? We have the data on the emissions. And all these jets from all these teams, it's way worse. We have decades of data to compare. And now we know the historic emissions of this World Cup, right? While billions watch the World Cup, scientists warn this tournament could come with an ugly climate cost. We're going to have to pay for this. We're going to have to pay extra for the World Cup. The ticket prices are not enough. It's also a climate cost because of the data, millions of tons of carbon emissions. It's 1 year of emissions for 2 million cars, as well as 5 times the emissions of the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Guys, no! It's 5 times the emissions of Paris from the Olympics. What's the point? We have so many emissions. Paris, it's all in one city. Of course, the World Cup's being played over 3 countries, an entire continent, over a full month. Can you believe it? It's 5 times more. The estimates come from a 2025 report by the British-based group Scientists for Global Responsibility. Emissions everywhere. There's so many emissions. And look what all these emissions are doing. Rare coastal floods, now 12 times more likely. Human-driven climate change is a major contributor. Rare coastal floods, so they were rare, but now they're 12 times. I heard it was 5 times the other day, but now it's 12. Things are getting worse much quicker. And all this travel and things are getting worse and what's going on, right? We're all wondering what's going on. How can we make it, right? All these people traveling and we got extra emissions. Travel AI, this is important, guys. Travel AI and sustainability efforts can coexist, experts say. What's travel AI? The corporate travel industry has spent the last few years watching sustainability slip down the priorities, just as we've seen with the World Cup. It's 5 times worse. It's crazy. The two trends can appear at odds as the environmental cost of the latter cuts against the goals of the former. But travel technology executives speaking last week at the Business Travel ESG Summit suggested that AI and sustainability aren't necessarily long-term enemies. Oh, that's great. So they're there, right? They can coexist. Thank God. Travel AI and sustainability can coexist, everybody. But I got bad news. Did they run their information through the El Nino change? El Nino forms in Pacific. As experts say, it will likely turbocharge extreme weather. So extreme. Urgent climate warning. Right? We heard it was the Godzilla. It was supercharged. It was turbocharged. It's all true. Meanwhile, in Canada, they're cutting their climate emergency plans. And the Hill Times, this asks, what part of climate emergency did the feds not get? What part do you not get? Geez, Louise, Mark Carney in Canada, what part do you not get? Geez, we got 5 times more likely, 12 times more likely on the coast. You're going to die. We got people going to the World Cup. All this, I tell you all the time, right? Doomerism about this stuff isn't the plan. Thank God the Globe and Mail in Canada has a story here. We can get out of this. Happiness, everyone. Happiness is our best weapon to fight climate change. We know that. We've been telling you, don't be a doomer. Happiness. We got to be happy. And then the weather will change, right? People say these guys are like voodoo, like it's old fashioned, pray for rain, do all this stuff, and right, have a human sacrifice for the weather and all these rituals, right? No, this isn't the same as that. This is real. If we all are happy, the weather is going to get better. That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. It's been cloudy here, and I've been saying, you know what? If I just go smile at exactly the same time every day, if I just go every day and stare outside with a great big smile on my face, the weather is going to change. And sure enough, affirmations for the weather, it's going to work, right? And then we keep wondering what's going on with these temperatures. We get this, what's driving up your expenses? Many Americans, all right, this is proof, guys. This is proof. Okay, now you know, right? Now you know. We all sit here like Bitcoiners, right? Printing money, it causes inflation. Wrong, you stupid Bitcoiners, idiots, dummies, right? What's driving up your expenses? We asked many Americans, and they all said the same. It's climate change. God. Right? For decades, American politicians have been slow. We're not fast enough, right? We're too slow. But now, ironically, their failure to rein in the fossil fuel emissions has yielded the same result. Expenses for everyday Americans have soared because of the extreme flooding and the heat. That's why it's so expensive. You're out there in Canada, right? Canadians, they're paying like $30 a pound right now. $30 a pound for beef. $30 a pound, right? It's because it's too hot in Canada. Canada is so hot. Today, it's going to be in the high 80s. Today, we've now, I know last week it was almost snowing still, and I know we've had all this cold weather for the past 5 or 6 months, but, right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're in a world, and the world's getting hotter. And now we have all this problem with our beef prices. Obviously too hot in Canada. It's all the flooding and the fires through the winter and the heat in Canada. And now we can't afford our own beef that we make here, that we grow here in our land. Right? We can't afford it because obviously it's too hot. That's what you get with Canada. The Economist writes yesterday that Trump must swallow his pride and accept a deal worse than the pre-war status quo. Whoa, whoa. Donald Trump's least bad option in Iran. That's a good one. And indeed, we're talking today about Elon Musk and the IPO. We got to remember, here's the Atlantic from almost exactly 1 year ago. The decline and fall of Elon Musk. Guys, he sucks. He's fucking losing. What a loser. It's over. The decline and fall. Look what he went and did. Right? I know he's about to be the first trillionaire in the world today. Okay. But come on. He's pretty lame, right? The Atlantic here is dunking on him. He's finished, right? He lost his job at the government. He lost his government job. I know he's a trillionaire. That's all right. The first ever trillionaire, right? That's okay. But just as you're thinking about him being a trillionaire, right? That's not good either. It is a fall, right? The decline and fall of this stupid idiot rocket designer, trillionaire, moron, dummy, right? If that's not enough, because he's the first trillionaire, here's how to properly hate him, right? SpaceX IPO makes Elon Musk the first trillionaire. It is a fall, right? Because now we know why and how to hate him. Thank God we have the Canadian news to help steer us on how to react to the world's first trillionaire. Such a dummy, so stupid. What a moron. Just absolutely retarded, this guy. Look at him. I'm jumping. I'm a trillionaire. God, I'm so glad Canada helping us out. Oh, hold on. Everything's glitching out right now. 1 second. It's all the fake news stories that I keep on my laptop that just burn the fucker out. All the cookies and all that shit. Can the World Wide Web just fucking die already? And we'll just we'll build a new one that doesn't have the cookie business. Like, I'm so sick of websites. How fucking dumb are these stupid Europeans? Of all the goddamn things they've inflicted on us, this fucking cookies thing is by far the worst. It's just unreal. It's just unreal. All right, so there's that dumb trillionaire again, right? What a retard. What a loser. Now, at least the Canadian news. And I know people are out there on the internet today. That's hypocritical. The owner of the Globe and Mail is worth $84 billion. He's the richest oligarch in Canada. Right? He's not worth $1 trillion, okay? He's not worth $1 trillion. Right? He's poor compared to Elon Musk. He's allowed to complain about people who are too rich. He's only got 84 billion. That's not even 1/10 of Elon. Of course, he's allowed to be envious and jealous and talk about why he should hate him and get his newspaper to hate on Elon. It's a great idea. Good morning, Nolan and Bitcoin fam, says Sandek. Nolan, what about the people in Upper Michigan? Thermostat updates for them, not just Detroit. We haven't got those. Thanks for letting me know, though, Jack2K. You make a great point. There is 2 parts of Michigan, and I agree with you. There's no way that Detroit's thermostat settings would be the same as the Upper Peninsula. It just makes no sense. The Upper Peninsula of Michigan is like a different planet. Right? Soccer is that old? I feel like it started in the 70s for some reason, says Narwhal Tacos. No, it was 1930. Yeah, that was skateboarding. So if there was a World Cup in Uruguay in the 1930s, teams would have had to make a month-long boat trip to get there. Yeah, I think so. Heather was on Brandon Gentili this morning, says CB Van. She sure was. I haven't seen it yet, but it looks like a great video. Globe and Mail is a confusing name for a newspaper. It's a really old one. Narwhal tacos. And see, Canada made me retarded. If it wasn't for Canada, I wouldn't know what to think. The Globe and Mail. Imagine believing there is such thing as a government job. I know. But he lost his government job, young Tommy. He's a loser. He sucks. He lost the decline and fall. What a loser. He lost his job. What the thing? Okay, so speaking of losing his job, here is Sightbringer on the largest IPO in the history of the world. And I will. Well, that's not true. He's not trying to raise as much money as the largest IPO in the history of the world, but it is the largest valuation of a company that is having its IPO. Do you know that I can barely say the word IPO? I just always want to say ICO. That's how much I've been living in this environment. So this is what he says. And this is, this to me, this belief piece here is where Bitcoiners really shine in this time of change. And remember, this whole belief piece here, which I'm about to describe from Sightbringer, describes very much the frame that I shared with you many times, and it's going to be our whiteboard of the day. Remember, our strategy here in World War III has always been to be better people. That has been from 2022. I've been telling you that the World War III frame looks like this. It's the Axis, it's the Allies, and it's the Ables. And we're seeing all of these stories really come into focus today, come into view. And you're really seeing that the strategy that we were forced, that we had to adopt, the only way we could win this war was to be, as Bitcoiners, to go against the grain to this extent, to survive all of the brainwashing, all of the shakeouts, everything that we've experienced in the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. All of it has to do with consolidating our own alignment, our own belief in what we were creating, our own worldview, and to make it consistent and strengthened and be load-bearing using the P2P model, using ourselves, using our own ability to think critically and reach consensus using the Nakamoto consensus method. We only have to agree on a few things in order to move forward. And we can disagree on many other things and they simply don't matter. So this framework remains, to me anyway, vital in understanding what's going on in the world. And again, this idea of the strategy being better people, that are literally our soul is supposed to be fortified through this process. And that is what is necessary to win. The IPO, which has Bitcoin in it, right? The IPO, which is a Bitcoin treasury company IPOing in this sense, is this here, what Sightbringer is saying. Friday is the largest monetization of belief in financial history. Again, why I keep telling you this stuff is psychological, why we're dealing with psychological commodities. The math doesn't matter, right? I'll tell you why in a second. There is no math anymore. There's no math. Numbers, yes. Math, fake. Or math is real, but not applicable here at all. Executed by the most informed seller of belief alive at the exact moment of its maximum purchasing power. That's the whole event. Everything else is mechanics. Start with the tell nobody is reading. The dictated price. No range, no book building, no price discovery on the biggest IPO ever attempted. 135 trash tokens. Take it or leave it. Price discovery exists to find what an asset is worth. Musk skipped it because worth was never the variable being measured. The fixed price is a loyalty test denominated in equity, and 4 times oversubscription is the test coming back positive. The market didn't price SpaceX this week. It pledged allegiance to it. And the S1 just gave the pledge I don't know what this means. The Morningstar gap is the event's true headline. 780 billion trash tokens of fundamentals inside a 1.8 trillion wrapper. The $1 trillion spread is the Musk premium, visible and tradable at scale for the first time. Tesla proved belief is a financeable asset class. SPCX is that discovery industrialized. Rockets, Starlink, and XAI fused into a single ticker whose buyers are purchasing the future itself, Mars, orbital, internet, machine intelligence as one instrument. People paying 135 trash tokens are not buying discounted cash flows. They're funding a mission and acquiring membership. Patronage with a ticker symbol. That's neither fraud nor delusion. It's a new instrument the textbooks don't have a chapter for yet, and Musk is the only person who has ever issued it at sovereign scale. True, but Bitcoiners did this first, right? This is what we've been doing this whole time. That's why Bitcoin at whatever $1 trillion market cap is exactly this. It's exactly this. The 30% retail allocation is the sharpest strategic move inside the deal and the least understood. Framed as democratization, its moat construction, millions of retail holders convert a defense contractor into political constituency. Every single subsidy fight, regulatory challenge, and contract dispute now happens against a company partially owned by the voting public. Tesla's retail base made it unkillable through years of negative fundamentals. SpaceX just bought the same armor deliberately at IPO before ever needing it. A strategic national asset acquiring a citizen shareholder army is genuinely new in American capitalism, and it's slightly chilling in exactly the way most brilliant structural moves are. Then the timing, which is information content. The best capital allocator of his generation chose this week. Melt up regime, retail euphoria at cycle highs, money market cash still flooding dips to raise the largest sum in market history at 2.3x the independent fundamental read. Sellers of that caliber maximize size precisely when the gap between price and value is widest. And this is what I said, this type of golden age coming into view at this time. Now, maybe we're 2 or 3 weeks, I thought May we would be out of the quagmire of Iran. It looks like we were. We're going to talk about Iran in a second. It just took a bit more theater time to play out. But here, seeing this is exactly what we've predicted is coming here. And again, this is why you don't look at this stuff with math. This is not market analysts. And remember, I'm one of the original market analysts in Bitcoin. I'm one of the first people to apply fundamental, technical, all these different analysis schemes to Bitcoin. 10 years ago, we were publishing research at CoinDesk, sell-side research for folks. And I understood that even then, that what I was mostly talking about, I'd put numbers and graphs and data, but that was all fake. I was selling an idea and a framework and a worldview, and you just make the data fit, right? And anyone who's produced anything like a analysis for a Wall Street person understands that the data is mostly a scam and not real or true. It's just data you choose to further buttress and support your point. Now, I knew this back then. I knew the data didn't matter. I knew the argument and the truth about what you were telling was more important than the data that you had backing it up. Now, I do believe data is important. But again, coming in this, here's an analysis Cernovich is talking about it. Matt Stoller, who all you need to know about Matt Stoller is he's one of the biggest anti-Bitcoin conservatives out there, right? So he's like one of these George Bush, we need to balance the budget type conservatives. And he's had a broken brain about Bitcoin forever. And here he is trying to analyze the AI bubble. And he says a fall back to the long-term average would cut, according to Baker, 300,000 per household of paper wealth from balance sheets. So he's like doing math on the fucking IPO, on the AI bubble, right? And Cernovich, says Matt's an interesting guy, but needs to update his mental model and wrestle with the Mag 7's generational run. That's not even the answer. The answer is this, and it's not a rational market. All models are broken. There is no model anymore. There's nothing like a fucking model in Wall Street. It's based on the US dollar. It's based on government fake debt that you can create out of just speaking a word. There is no control. We don't even know how many dollars there are. We haven't known how many US dollars there are because of the nature of the money, it being debt. I can create a dollar. However many people are watching right now, there's a few hundred people watching. I owe you all $1. Okay, so now I just created hundreds of dollars that didn't exist 2 seconds ago. They're created. There's a debt now. I just psychologically created money. That's how US dollars are created. That's what the euro dollar is. The euro dollar is just money around the world that people invented in terms of liabilities, and then it's a dollar because now I owe you $1. Right now, I rescind it, so just as easily as that, I can rescind the dollar. But you can come up to me and say I owe you $1. But we did create dollars just as a mental experiment. So here, because of that, right, we have a Fed chair who's a VC who's written checks into this AI data center productivity moonshot. And he's there to execute that mandate. And no amount of money will matter. There is no bubble. There can't be a bubble. Now, The world market could crash. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That could happen. But it's not going to be because of financial analysis. The market would have crashed years ago, right? There's no, if we were logical, there would be already widespread, complete, and total financial ruin and Armageddon. What you're seeing on the outer edges of the system, all these poor drug addicts and hopeless people, that is the true nature of the money coming through. That's the true product of printing. So it is creating all kinds of trouble, right? It's creating all kinds of mental illness. It's creating misery around the world. It's just not measured in financial graphs. They're all fake. They can all be gamed. They can all be tricked. That's not the point, right? And that's why all the money we can print is going into this. However much the market will bear, we're going to do it because this has to work. It's got to work. And no rational financial analysis is worth reading. And Cernovich replies, the choice was made to run the fiat until the wheels fall off. And that is exactly what bimetallism is all about, which is exactly why I've been telling you this is the key to understanding why the Federal Reserve being subordinate to the Treasury in this way is important, because you're going to see new mental models, new issuance of money, new commodity-backed situations so that this sort of thing never happens again. But for now, that this is just not what's happening. We're betting on this golden age, and it's already coming through, right? It has to work, and it's coming through. Look at this with the AI stuff. Florida hospital reveals Palantir software has cut sepsis deaths by more than half since it was installed, and it is massive, right? Every one of us knows at least one person killed by sepsis. Some know more, and we have the same problem in our Quebec hospitals. And having these systems are going to save lives, right? And again, getting out of this world of limiting our projections from Wall Street analysis, and the fundamentals of the AI bubble are that if any little, I'm Matt Stoller and Bitcoin's a scam, and I've been looking into the numbers about the AI boom, and I'm not so sure, right? None of that is possible or real, or worrying and doomering about the AI thing and how much money it's going to cost us. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. That psychological engine is done. And here we can see, again, with my framework, why being optimistic and being one of the ables is so important, because this is tricky stuff. It really is complicated, right? If you grew up in the Wall Street world and you really believe these numbers, and now finding out that there are no numbers, and that there are no, I wish there was a more of an explanation of how Palantir helps the sepsis. Yeah, I think it's just systems optimization, frankly. Probably all that was ever required. So it's probably just systems optimization. It probably wasn't a complicated fix. It was just one of those things that you get caught. One of the advantages we have with AI is it's fresh eyes. We get caught up as humans in pattern recognition, and we often can't see outside the box, even if we know this is an instance where we should be looking outside the box. It's not easy for us all the time, and they're kind of like, fresh eyes is one way to put it, but they have a completely different mental model than we do, and they don't have the same amount of social coercion that we fall into through our pattern recognition and our implicit need to reach consensus with other humans, especially on systems. So again, I don't know, but I assume it's something like that. So is it fake? Could be. I mean, it could be fake. I'm not going to verify it, so I don't need it to be true in my worldview. It was a convenient example for the day, and that's as far as we need to take it. But again, the frame I've been using in this World War III, like who's participating, how are we going to win, all that. Again, it was to have the optimistic sense that what we're building is a better world, and that you can measure it more or less in psychological health and physical health, and you can't really see it on a Wall Street spreadsheet or balance sheet, and that none of those arguments made sense. And Bitcoiners understand that, right? Because again, go back to the early days of Bitcoin, and you're looking at a financial product, a psychological commodity with zero intrinsic value, none, right? And we're sitting there saying, okay, we're going to take over the financial world. We're worth $1 billion as an entire industry. But you know what? We're going to actually upend the entire global market. And that sounded insane. So you had to have a certain degree of diluted optimism to be successful in Bitcoin from the beginning. And here, the very first world trillionaire is talking about why this optimism is so important. Peter Diamandis says, people ask me how I stay so optimistic. He says, the honest answer, I read the data, not the headlines. Now, it's not the data. It's not the data. But the data can be measured in vibes and all this other stuff. And it is just really optimistic. It's the headlines you don't want to chase. And here, as Elon Musk says, Peter's eternal optimism is cool. And here's Sumit, who you guys all know from the chat, saying, as a group, I think Bitcoiners are the most optimistic and hopeful for the future. It's gonna work out. The world needs more techno optimism, doing what I can to inspire anyone to take action as we go through the most amazing time in human history. I believe that. Thank you, Elon. Optimism is much easier when you're building epic products like Starship, Optimus, and humanity's first Dyson Swarm. I don't know about the Dyson Swarm, the Dyson Sphere, but we think those are cool. So again, the optimism here is our only path to victory. And the good news is we've had lots of reason to be optimistic and not fall for the doomers. So I know we've had multiple deals in place for the Iran war, and I've believed that we're going to cycle through these. We have a deal, we don't have a deal, more bombs. I mean, everybody knows the meme of buying a carpet off a Persian in Iran. It's a lot of negotiating. It's a weird negotiating culture. And we shouldn't have expected anything but that when it came to this peace deal. But it looks like the deal's been in place for a long time, and all this fighting has been sort of fake in the last little while. And here now, Iranian state media confirms the deal with the U.S. and says it includes lifting sanctions, withdrawing U.S. military from around Iran, and ending the naval blockade. We have a few more details. It looks like a great deal for everyone, which is what I always said was going to happen, right? Where everyone was going to get a great deal here. There was a great deal to be had for everyone. All Trump really wants is no nuclear and proof, because the next stage here, of course, is to bring proof of the uranium back to the domestic enemies in America, because I think Trump knows that it's connected to Obama and Uranium One and Hillary Clinton, but we'll wait for that information. I still believe it's there. Here's just some of the ideas and details in the deal. Permanent immediate cessation of a war on all fronts, including Lebanon. Great news. America's commitment to non-interference in Iran's internal affairs. Excellent news. That's what you want. We don't want to have to. Iran can figure its own shit out now. If they're not stuck with the British anymore, and if the potential to rug pull and hold the world hostage by the Strait of Hormuz is gone in the energy markets, we don't need to bother. They'll be fine. And they'll eventually join the rest of the Middle East as a powerful region, and they'll all be commercially bound to each other, which is what we're going to build there. And I agree that here America's committed to withdrawing its forces from around Iran. My prediction from the beginning is we're gone forever. That's why I never cared about the military bases. We're not going back to them. And we might want to keep the real estate. That's a separate question. But we're not going to be like arming military bases or anything like that. Reopening the Strait of Hormuz with Iranian arrangements, fine. Never had a problem with that. Suspension of oil and gas sanctions on the sale of oil and full access. Can't log on to Fidelity for past 25 minutes. Maybe the apocalypse starts with a SpaceX IPO. Well, it is an apocalypse of some kind, just not the one that we should be concerned about. The United States and its allies present reconstruction plans for Iran worth at least $300 billion. That was always part of any deal I imagined. Who would mind if we do a Marshall Plan for Iran? We don't want the Persians suffering anymore. We want them as active participants in the modern world. This is a big reinforcement, actually, for global peace efforts if the Persians can throw away their religious leadership and dictatorship over time and rejoin the optimistic golden age future. Release of the money mechanism. Who cares about the UN? But it looks like we're going to get the deal. And again, the deal has lots of interesting stuff for optimistic people. The memorandum is the tell. The strike window created the pressure field, and the blockade became the cage around the regime. Iran launched missiles across the Gulf and exposed the full regional architecture at once. Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait, and the UAE, Israel, Qatar, Pakistan, and the United States all moved into the same frame. Seems Iran got everything they wanted. Yeah, which is fine. I don't want to punish Iran anymore. I want the fucking the uranium from the Ukraine, however it was that got over there. I want to know what Obama did and Hillary did, because I'm pretty sure this is connected. Not positive, don't have any smoking gun stuff, but it sounds like that's been one of the reasons for a long time. So we're waiting for this news, and we'll see what happens. Trump held the strike package over the board, kept the naval blockade in place, and converted military pressure into control document. The report says the final points were already approved in concept and in great detail by all parties involved. That means the real structure was built before the public announcement. The world is watching the disclosure phase. Iran is saving face while the framework tightens around nuclear language, regional security, shipping lanes, energy corridors, verification, compliance, and signature. That's all that really matters. And again, nuclear language is important. This is pressure architecture. Terms become sequence, sequence becomes verification, verification becomes compliance, and compliance becomes receipts. The wider signal reaches far beyond Iran. The CCP sees the corridor tightening, and the City of London sees the old financial control grid losing leverage. The globalist architecture is against the ropes because pressure is forcing exposure, alignment, documentation, and proof. The old model ran through chaos, proxies, shadow finance, energy leverage, terror corridors, and endless war management. Trump is converting the chaos into a peace deal. Classic Trump. And look at all that you're getting out of it, right? Just look at Trump's victory here. Energy markets, everything. And again, it's important to contrast this with the doomers, which is what I've been saying for a long time. And just funny enough, right? Funny enough. Now, I defended Tucker yesterday for putting these Christians on, talking about demons, and I've continued to value a lot of what Tucker has to say. But again, I warned you from the moment he opened his mouth at the TPUSA event last year and started going on about fucking Bitcoin that something was up with this guy. And funny enough, yesterday, as the peace deal is announced, he's sitting there doing his doomer thing with Mario Nawfal, doing an interview with Mario Nawfal. Here he is. And then, of course, as he's going on about it, Tucker is going on that Trump is being controlled by Israel, the Israel thing. He can't get out of the war, he said, right? He can't get out of the war. He also talks about why he believes he'll eventually be silenced. And then right in the middle of the interview, Trump posts that peace may finally be on the table. So the whole conversation suddenly becomes much bigger. Can Trump still break free? Can he actually walk away? Or was the moment everyone voted for in 2024 already lost long ago? Whether you agree with Tucker or not, so of course he's got to say, can he get away, right? But again, don't know what role Tucker is playing. Don't have any ill will towards him. Just recognize that this was never a war to be a doomer about. And as Cernovich says here, we won the Iran war. It wasn't even a real war. Why be a sore winner? Now, he also said we can debate why we got into the war in the first place, but it's another story, right? The truth is, it's pretty obvious that Trump used air superiority, the missiles, all that stuff. And there you go. Didn't Tucker have Swan lined up to sponsor his roadshow ahead of election in 2024? Charlosky, you bring up a great point. I forgot about that. He sure did. And that all went to shit. I actually congratulated Corey when he negotiated that deal. And I said, that's going to be huge. Tucker is going to be getting huge audiences. And they had to cancel it. You're so right. I forgot about that. I wonder if that had something to do with his turn. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask them about it. I'll ask the Swan guys about it. So again, what did Trump get out of this war? And this is why you can see what all of this stuff about the Hormuz and oil and the choke points and the leverage the fiat industrial complex had over the world. using this energy strait. And here, James E. Thorne says it's Trump's Trafalgar moment. Trump's Iran deal is best understood through the lens of Trafalgar, a decisive victory that does not end every conflict, but closes the enemy's best route to success and reshapes the strategic landscape. By reopening the Strait of Hormuz, blocking Tehran's path to a nuclear weapon, and cutting off the financial backing of global terrorism, Trump has broken Iran's core leverage without a wider ground war. The closure and reopening of the strait has changed the rules of the great game in energy security, putting the United States back at the center of global energy markets. Investors should expect critics to pan the agreement as insufficiently decisive, but they should ignore the pedantry. The rules of the game have changed, and the forces for complete victory have been set in motion. Nelson's victory at Trafalgar did not end every battle, but it closed off Napoleon's best route to victory and set the course of the war. The end of the Cold War did not abolish conflict, but it delivered a peace dividend that reshaped economies. Trump's deal with Iran stands in that line, a decisive strategic win with far-reaching economic and market consequences. The critics were not satisfied when Maduro fell, and they will not be satisfied now, but history will be, and capital will be too, because a peace dividend akin to the one that followed the end of the Cold War will not be ignored. And again, go back to the timing of the IPO. All of the timing, the sequential timing, a lot of it is just coincidence. But again, seeing this huge capital market move today, this reorientation of the economy, this injection of optimism with the first ever American trillionaire, with the AI data center moonshot that they're attempting, and with and a bunch of Bitcoin on the balance sheet, you're seeing why the better people formula of continuing to build, ignoring the doomers, moving into the sectors that matter and slowly squeezing them until you own them is the way to win. And, it's simultaneous to this. The United States officially becomes the world's largest oil exporter, surpassing Saudi Arabia. This was what ended up happening by rewiring and reorienting all of these energy flows. And it's important that this is all happening on the same day, right? On the same day you have this IPO, America's the biggest. Officially, we've been talking about it for a while, but I guess officially it's the biggest past Saudi Arabia because of all of this rerouting. And this isn't even counting the Venezuela stuff, right? America built energy leverage without the public fully noticing. That is the point. For decades, the U.S. strategic posture was built around energy vulnerability. Protect Gulf shipping, manage Saudi relations, police sea lanes, fear oil shocks, treat Middle East instability as a direct threat to domestic economic stability. The world has changed. If the U.S. is now the largest exporter, the whole geopolitical equation bends. America is no longer merely the consumer at the mercy of OPEC. It is a producer, exporter, price setter, logistics actor, sanctions enforcer, and crisis stabilizer. This is why the Hormuz story matters. The reason oil did not go to $200 was not because the shock was fake. It was because the global system now has buffers that did not exist in the old 1970s style framework. U.S. output and export capacity are part of that buffer. American shale quietly broke the old Saudi psychological monopoly. Again, this is all a psychological game. All of it. Bitcoin is a psychological commodity. The petrodollar was a psychological commodity. That's why it's about being stronger mentally. That's why it's about having a more powerful psychological engine. That's why optimism is a big part of this formula, and not being a doomer, right? Now, I'm not saying don't be a doomer and listen to everything Trump says. No, that's not what I'm saying. Trump does all kinds of stuff that I go, oh, but I'm not going to predict that it's going to end the fucking world, right? That's not what's going on here. Saudi still matters enormously. They're America's number one ally. We couldn't have done this without Saudi. We couldn't have done this without UAE leaving OPEC. Like, these are all our greatest allies. OPEC matters. And that's a big thing to say, because after 9/11, you would not expect that the allies the history books are going to recognize that helped America win World War III are Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Japan to a lesser extent, but still important. Those were America's allies in World War III. Israel, Saudi Arabia, UAE, because the Middle East was the most infested and infected with this fiat disease. from the city of London, from the financial purveyors, from everyone who rigged the world in the way that it had been rigged. And that's why energy was the important factor here, taking the energy and bringing it back to America and breaking down all of these systems allowed the American optimistic psychological engine to fly forward without the impediments and the retardation caused by the fiat sludge machine shit shovelers. So Saudi Arabia still matters. Of course it does. Spare capacity still matters. Gulf routes still matter. But the old image of Saudi Arabia as the central oil kingmaker is weaker. The US now has enough production, infrastructure, and export scale to shape global price dynamics directly. That is a regime shift. But here's the part ordinary people hate. This does not mean cheap gasoline at home. It will. Oil is globally priced. US barrels move into world markets. Refineries are configured for specific crude grades. Products trade globally. Export arbitrage links domestic supply to foreign demand. Companies sell where margins are best. The US consumer does not get automatic first claim on cheap molecules just because the molecules came from American ground. And they will soon. Energy independence does not mean consumer insulation. It means state level leverage and corporate export power. So when people ask, why is gas still expensive? The answer is because the US built an export machine, not a domestic cheap fuel guarantee. The state gains leverage. Energy companies gain markets. Consumers remain exposed to global pricing, but not worried about it. It is coming down. We're going to be just absolutely drowning in the stuff. And this is the full power that Trump has. He's got energy. His tariff thing is working, right? We see this as well. Yesterday, foreign investment in US surged to $232 billion after 4 years of declines. And apparently tariffs like borders work. Trump was right again. Economy just rolling. And on the flip side of that, you get the euro pores, right? So all this great stuff is happening. And European Central Bank, they hiked interest rates. Things are going too great in Europe. They have too much inflation. We got to stop it. This is just Keynesian brain rot again. And this is the type of regime change that we're realizing. It's not just energy. It's the full suite regime change, the full financial system regime change. You've heard Warsh say it, it's regime change. You've heard Besant say it, it's regime change. You're seeing regime change in energy. You're seeing regime change in global markets. And Europe is just trying to go along with the old system. This isn't regime change. This is just typical Euro trash nonsense. And who cares about the 25 basis points? Inflation, Iran inflation. This is the old world. Look at how retarded the old world was. This is how America used to act. This was the worldview. This is who dominated America. This is why we had so many fucking sludge people. Oh, the oil. Oh no, it's our own fucking fault that we can't get oil in Europe because of how stupid they are. And it's their own fault. And now they have to raise interest rates on 0.25. Who gives a shit anyway? But still, it just shows how dumb they are. Meanwhile, as Trump is winning everything, right? And they're raising rates, interest rates in Europe. Look what the Canadian news is out there. They're onto their new propaganda slop already. They published this morning. The 2029 warning. How many more fucking times are the sludge people going to hear this new headline? NATO's race to rearm ahead of Russia. We got to fight Russia. We got to fight Russia. And come around. You're going to love the Canada episode today. Russia, of course, now directly threatening Canada and Mark Carney. That, you know how Mark Carney thinks the internet doesn't exist and he can say one thing here and say one thing there. It's funny when it's about America and Trump and he's like elbows up in Canada and in the States. He's like, let's make America great again. Well, it doesn't work that way in Russia. Okay. And he's going around bragging about all the fucking drones he's building for the Ukrainians in Canada. And then Russia says, okay, that's war. And now Canada, I guess, is at war with Russia. They're not going to win. It's not going to work out. And so, of course, the Canadian newspaper here telling us, Project 2029. It's their new Project 2029. Let's race to rearm NATO. Anyway, these poor, stupid losers, right? And they're out there, the same newspaper is out there trying to tell you, I'll let you know how to hate Elon Musk today. Who do you think you should hate? The people telling you to rearm against Russia so you can fight them in a war in 3 years? You're going to fight Russia in a war in 3 years, Canada. Get fucking real. Get real. Give up right now. Capitulate. You're too stupid. You're too dumb. You can't handle it. The big kids are talking. You're not one of them. And so, as Europe is preparing for war, who's going to fight for Europe in NATO against Russia? Who's going to do that? What Canadian is going to now join? I saw a soldier yesterday in uniform walking down the street, a fat woman in her fucking Canadian military outfit. She couldn't, and there's hill, Montreal's got a mountain in it, right? Montreal means Mount Royal, right? So there's like a mountain, right? It's not a very big mountain, but it's technically a mountain. And where I live to get up to downtown, I've got like, I don't know, 100 feet of hillside to walk up at one point, right? And that's where I met her. And I'm telling you, this fat bitch, I'm not fat shaming, okay? I'm just telling you, wearing a soldier's uniform, she couldn't make it up the hill. She couldn't make it up the hill. My daughter biked home last night 5 miles from her homeschool study pod. And we biked up the mountain, down the mountain. That's the fast way to get over. 5 miles at the end of her day after she'd been out playing all day, right? This soldier in Canada couldn't walk up the same fucking hill my daughter, 8-year-old daughter, 8-year-old daughter. She didn't have the fitness level of an 8-year-old girl. 8-year-old girl, right? And that's a Canadian soldier in full camo fatigues, right? So who's going to fight for these people? You think the Prairie Boys that did Canada so proud in World War I and World War II are going to go fight for Mark Carney against Russia? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And it's even worse. Look what's going on, of course, back in Belfast, right? It's getting more and more violent. You think any of these Northern Ireland people are going to fight for UK? You think they're going to fight for the UK? The Molotov cocktails are in. They're burning their buildings. This is probably not going to stop. Europe has absolutely zero credibility amongst its population. They're not going to be getting any support. We're even seeing the courts. Here's the famous lady from last year as this is all going on. A young Scottish girl who defended her sister from invader predators has been vindicated by a British court. She should have a statue erected in her honor rather than have been charged in the first place. She has more heart than the leftist politicians destroying the UK. And remember this last year, how famous she became and how great it was. And of course, now we see that she won her case and is not going to have any of this trouble anymore. So good for her. Europe finally changing. And here's some people are saying this is going to be the song of the summer in Europe. It's called Deport, Deport, Deport. And deport. Pretty fun stuff. Deport the fucking lot. Here, I'll play the audio for you guys for a second. Song of the summer, some people are saying in Europe. Song of the summer. Where is it? I'll just play a few seconds of it. It's good stuff, though.
Fucking lot. If they're men, send them back. We haven't got room, we can't keep track. Deport the fucking lot. Deport the fucking lot. Keep them off our shores.
So it's going to be a lot of that stuff, right? It's not going great. And in the same argument, the same type of slop that divided Europe like this, it's not working in America either, right? The same tricks that were used in George Floyd time falling apart. Here's they're trying to go with the Carmelo Anthony, who's a happy, nice guy, right? Matt Walsh says, wow, I thought that it was wrong of him to stab a kid to death, but now that I see these videos of Carmelo smiling and stuff, I've realized that actually he should have been allowed to murder whoever he wanted. I apologize for my error, right? So the stuff from the Carmelo Anthony is not really landing, right? I know you guys were worried about a summer of love yesterday, another George Floyd situation, but I said because he's such a scumbag, it's not going to work out the same way, and that the persuasion framework around it just won't catch. And so this observation by Matt Walsh is very much true. But I'll even take it one step further. It's not in my notes, but I'm just gonna find it right here now. You can even see, Jamal Hill. Jamal Hill being the girl used to be on Sportsnet, whatever that ESPN is, and here she is. And so remember, she used to be she was like a sports thing, and now she writes for the Atlantic, and she's a mega Trump hater, and generally woke as shit. But here she says the truth, right? Let this be a lesson to us, especially to teach our young Black boys, because we have definitely seen this in our community where the slightest of things has touched off something that can't be reversed. So we need to be having a conversation with our young Black boys about emotional regulation and decision making and discernment and wisdom. And let's hand it to Jamal Hill. I didn't see the whole interview. Maybe this clip was taken out of context. But this is the correct answer, and that's why we're not getting a George Floyd thing. She's been forced into giving the correct answer. And while there's lots of people freaking out about Carmelo Anthony and all that stuff, it's not going to metastasize. It doesn't have legs. It's going to die on the vine here. The outrage is going to die on the vine. It's just not going anywhere. Again, and this is why being a better person is the right strategy to win. Eventually, if you change power systems and you alter all of these brainwashing techniques, if you alter how powers, marketplace power, literal electricity, and you keep changing the conversation incrementally over time, you're going to see that she couldn't do what she did with George Floyd. Now the world has changed too much. People are seeing this stuff too much. Whatever Elon did with X, all of this stuff, it just means that we're not getting the George Floyd thing because she had nowhere to go here. And normally this case is one of those ones where, and she's doing it again, she's taking the high ground, right? But the high ground is defined by the circumstances, by the world views. And you can see her, she's forced into taking this high ground. People want to be on the high ground, right? So that's most people's navigating, that's their compass. It's our compass. It's what I've been saying is our strategy to win World War III is the moral high ground. Be better people. That is how you win arguments. And here she's been forced into an opinion that would align with what I think and with what many people think, because these systems are changing. But the better person strategy is perfectly evidenced here. Here's Gene Parmesan. Gene Parmesan is the guy who made a lot of Spencer Pratt's AI videos. Really talented fella. And here he makes an observation where Erica Kirk was at the NBA game the other night. She's first time watching basketball in way too long. What a clutch ending for the Knicks tonight, she says. And Evan Loves Wharf says, shut the fuck up. And Gene Parmesan points out, modern leftism is just a permission structure to be as awful as humanly possible to other people all the time for no reason. And that's everything. That's why what you see here, right? The all lies, the ables, and the axis. Again, why the goal of being a better person is so important, and why this world that here was designed to give them the moral high ground, the confluence of their money system, of their censorable, algorithmically controlled internet, and of their fake market growth all the time strategy, print more money, fix problems, why that whole thing is falling apart, and why it's not persuading anyone, and why the Carmelo Anthony and all of this stuff is just not going to work, right? And so, again, the doomerism, especially about the Erica Kirk thing, because that one is tough, right? With Charlie and what happened and the investigation, and we don't know, and we know a lot, but there's some stuff we don't know, and it's not easy to be patient when we all want these answers. And this whole Charlie Kirk thing was used as a huge dividing point within a lot of the MAGA sphere, within a lot of the world around Trump. And it was another one of these stories where doomerism was injected heavily, and it was leveraged heavily to divide and conquer and keep the ability for people to be optimistic aligned. And of course, you remember it was all about Israel and Epstein and what she worked for Epstein. Remember that? That was like a crazy thing that people came out with. She's audio working for Epstein, all of it fake, obviously. And again, that's why I said that, going back to what we heard about from the beginning of the Iran war and what I said would happen, right? And what I believe will happen and where I think we're headed and why I will reiterate it again and again, because it was a prediction I made. I said when the Iran story stops, Epstein for the summer is going to come back. Now, I said there'll be a bit of a lull, even when it comes back in the summer, because we have a lot of golden age stuff first. We got to get to the July 4th coming up in under a month. We got the fight, we got the World Cup. We have a lot of golden age things to be optimistic about this summer. But once that's over, you're going to get your summer reading on 9/11. You're going to get your summer reading on Israel. You're going to get your summer reading on everything that happened. And we're going to get more Epstein Files news. And it already started on time. Yesterday, we had our favorite, Epstein and Bill Gates testifying. We had Bill Gates yesterday coming to the Congress to testify. Someone says, follow Jesus, stop being a baby flesh eater, as he exits the closed door testimony about Jeffrey Epstein's child trafficking network. So that happened yesterday. You're going to see more of it. You're going to see more. And here, exactly when this happens, the Epstein survivors come out, right? So you're starting to see it. Epstein survivors release statement blasting Todd Blanche following the revelation that he worked alongside the White House to protect Trump from the Epstein files. Ooh. Exactly one day after Bill Gates testifies, the victims funded by the Tides Foundation, that is funded by the Gates Foundation, broadsides Todd Blanche instead of Bill Gates, the man who drugged his wife so he wouldn't get the STDs he got from the Russian hooker he banged at a chess tournament. Do I have that right? Yes, I do. So moral high ground, not going to be occupied by anyone else on this file. Just not going to happen. And the high ground thing keeps being lost everywhere across the argument landscape in America. Plattner is another good example. Adam Townsend says, shit lib industrial complex is clawing to vote for Graham Plattner like he's an anal itch. But they want to get to the bottom of the hoaxy Epstein string theory because, damn it, they got ethics and morals and shit. Exactly. And then here, same thing. The left claimed, and this is about those kids, right? Trump admin has found 146,000 migrant kids who went missing under Biden DHS chief. Here, the left claimed to care about Epstein and the victims, but they completely ignore all the work Trump has done in both his terms to combat human trafficking and find the missing children. The left used to claim all this was a conspiracy theory. Why? Because their open border policies created the largest human trafficking corridor on the planet. As part of their broader plan to flood the nation with illegals, the Dems created an environment safe for human traffickers to operate. They are complicit in global human trafficking. All of their outrage over Epstein is fake. The 10 plus years behind schedule, all of it is performative bullshit. Trump and his administration have done more to combat human trafficking than anyone in history, while the Dems lost hundreds of thousands of children. You'd think it would be unanimously celebrated that Trump admin are finding the missing children, but not a peep from the Dems or legacy media. They don't care about the children. They only care about destroying Trump and covering up their own criminality. The moral high ground is totally, irrevocably lost. And it goes through the whole system. Here's someone else, another writer trying to support him, right? You get it again. New York Times, Jodi Kantor, who wrote many Me Too stories, defends Graham Plattner and dismisses allegations against him. So this is a 0 on the persuasion scale. Let's see if the audio plays.
They're not about a boss and a young female employee being subjected to sexual advances. They're
you got to hear the moronic uptalk, so I got to make sure you're hearing it. So not only is she not going to be able to occupy the moral high ground, she speaks like a retarded teenaged girl. And so the persuasion here is another 0. It's another 0. They're not going to be occupying any moral high grounds around here any longer.
They were mostly made in the context of consensual relationships. There are these very sensational texts about sex. There are allegations from former girlfriends.
Tests about sex.
That are not, the way my colleagues reported them, were not like classic
abuse
They're allegations.
Not classic.
They were mostly...
They're not classic. They're not classic.
Being his boyfriend gave me a view into him, and I did not like what I saw. His character was scary. He had this Nazi tattoo, etc. There was one allegation.
Only one. Okay.
Physically, but I think that means that these are pretty different accusations than say the.
I can't listen to her retarded voice any longer. So it is really incredible how the same people that turned every accusation in the Kavanaugh affair into an indisputable conviction of him and his character now insist that everyone should look away as the evidence against Plattner piles up. So you just love it, right? It's just too funny. But the good news is here, and here's the person with the statement about Plattner yesterday. Wesley Yang says the left-wing woman that matched with Plattner on Tinder and saw his Nazi tattoo was entirely placated by his explanation that he kept the Totenkopf as a reminder that the United States was the bad guy and only considered speaking out to contradict him when he lied and claimed that he had only just now learned that it was a Nazi tattoo. She did not consider speaking out about the fact that he was dating her while engaged to another woman and had ended that engagement when caught fucking yet another woman at a wedding until the other woman had been talked about their unpleasant experiences with him were smeared as liars. This engagement predated his marriage to his current wife, who alerted his campaign to the fact that he was sexting with a dozen women. People will decide whether this matters to them. It seems doubtful they will. Bill Clinton's multiple sexual misconduct accusations did not prevent his election or re-election, just as Ted Kennedy drowning a woman in his car did not end his long and distinguished senatorial career. The party of JFK, RFK, Teddy Kennedy, Bill Clinton, and Harvey Weinstein had a brief interregnum in which some efforts to punish male jerks for things far worse than what Plattner is accused of and box them out of positions of public authority were made. That period seems to be coming to a close. Trump is of course not different or better than this, and it did not matter to his voters, including evangelical Christians. This provides every Democrat with an easy justification to vote for Plattner, which is true, which will in turn mean the decisive end of the Me Too era. So no more moral high grounds. If you want to vote for a shitty person, you can vote for a shitty person. But there is a nuance here, right? So here we can see this legacy media and what people still believe, going back here to talking about evidence in the stolen election. Remember, exactly right, Eric Swalwell spent 3 years on TV claiming that Trump was a secret agent for Russia. The legacy media didn't call him a conspiracy theorist. They just let him lie to the American people. Many Democrats still believe this garbage. Many Democrats do, but fewer do. And again, we've learned ways to fight back against these folks that we didn't understand before. We've learned new techniques, new persuasion methods, new ways of arguing, new ways of not trying to argue these details or die on a fake moral high ground hill that wasn't real. We're figuring out how to do it. And, sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's ugly, but indeed, here's Fisher King. And this is what I've said this for a long time. You can't calling a leftist a communist doesn't work. Calling them, you're the real Nazis also doesn't work, right? Graham Plattner's primary victory will give us another demonstration of how Con Inc.'s the Democrats are the real racist Nazis argument doesn't work. I heard Trump on the radio yesterday say he kind of looks like a pig. That's better, right? So Trump, again, we're not doing this fake old moral high ground thing when it's fake moral high ground and not persuading. In this case, just saying he's a pig, more persuasive, right? More persuasive. It gets to the point quicker. And we learn this because the legacy news has so lost the moral high ground that they can't persuade anymore. They lost that faculty. They lost that ability. And it's through techniques like this that we learn from Trump, right? From Trump. We learned from Trump how to engage in these arguments. We learned from Trump how to, call fake news. Here's another example of it yesterday. Here's Trump talking with Kristen Collins. I hope the audio worked. Well, I'll start it over so the audio definitely works. I don't feel lucky today with the audio.
Weaponization fund?
Yeah, what's your decision?
The weaponization fund, as far as I'm concerned, was a beautiful thing. It was something I didn't make it, but I heard that. I thought that was the greatest thing because people like you have abused our people so badly. The fake news like CNN, like the New York Times and like others have abused our people. Wait a minute, be quiet. Have abused our people so badly, and you should be ashamed of yourself. You used to be a conservative. She was a conservative from Alabama. Can you believe it? But CNN, in particular, CNN does such false reporting. But now they have new ownership, so maybe it'll straighten it out. I doubt it. But it's hard to straighten garbage out. But CNN has abused, and others have abused so badly. People, these are people that are great people that were destroyed. Their families have been destroyed. Many suicides. They committed suicide. People that went there with love. They went there with love. You know, when I made that speech early in the day, tremendous crowd. I hate.
So, and it's not going to get better for them, right? It's absolutely not going to get better for them. Let me, got to get rid of a few more of these. There's the one I wanted. Oh yeah, oh okay, it's right there. It's not going to get better either with the news, right? We see this as well. You know, Variety talking about Barry Weiss. Now, say what you want about Barry Weiss, she's not going anywhere, right? So, and when Trump threatened CNN, this is what he was talking about, Barry Weiss. So here, the entire business of network news is on its way out. These arguments are sort of like British lords arguing about the future of the British Empire in 1965. There's just no juice behind it, no persuasion, and it's only going down, right? It's only going down. And so this is part of this vibe shift, right? This is part of what I said was going to happen. Remember, we were talking about the vibes being so bad in the beginning of the war in March and in April. And I said, by now the vibes are going to change. And I said, they're going to change for all these reasons. And now we're seeing it everywhere. The vibe shift is real. ACLU of Ohio on Cleveland Clinic's anti-trans settlement with Department of Justice. We are deeply saddened, says the ACLU, of the clinic's $2 million settlement with the Department of Justice. This is about cutting dicks off and tits off and installing dicks with ligaments from your wrist and your hip. So gender affirming care to children and families in need, now a criminal offense with huge fines. Vibe shift, none of this happens without Trump, and that is exactly true. And that's why, again, the vibe shift is just going to keep going in this direction, and why you're going to see election stuff, Epstein stuff. And the reason I'm even really optimistic that we're going to get these things is because Trump yesterday appointed or announced who is going to be taking over for Tulsi Gabbard and Bill Pulte, and he kept following my model. I told you the only model I accept from now on for the head of national security and national intelligence in America is former speakers that I've booked. So if you're not a former speaker that I've booked for Bitcoin stuff, you don't get to actually be involved in national security or run it anymore. Tulsi, Bill Pulte, both people I booked for the Bitcoin conference. I booked Jay Clayton in 2019. In 2019, at the very event where I interviewed Eric Weinstein about Bitcoin, we had Jay Clayton, who was the head of the SEC at the time. So he was the head of the SEC back then, and he came to my event in 2019, and we had a great time. He was a very smart guy. We're big fans. And Jay Clayton at that time was also, if you remember, appointed, but it was a lame duck. He was appointed to the Southern District of New York at the end of Trump's 2020 term. And that was big news because, of course, if you remember, the Southern District of New York is where all the Epstein file stuff ran through. So he ended up becoming the Attorney General for the Southern District of New York. And it's from the Southern District of New York that he is headed to the head of the National Security Agency. So once again, just like Bill Pulte, you've got a guy who understands financial stuff, head of the SEC, who's also involved in the most crooked court where a lot of this stuff goes on with the Southern District of New York. So you've got a guy from the Southern District of New York now who's going to be looking into all national security stuff and all this stuff with the elections and Epstein and what happened. Are you ready for the next phase? President Trump has nominated Jay Clayton, currently U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York and former chair of the SEC, to be the next director of national intelligence. The next stage is set, teed up, buckle up. Again, that is my rule, right? You have to be a speaker that I've booked if you want to run national intelligence from now on. And that is what is up. And that's why we're doing it. Right? Yeah. And what's so funny is you can see the Senate being insane right here. We see right away they love the Jay Clayton thing. I don't think they should be that excited about it. Remember, the Senate couldn't get the Save America Act or a filibuster removed, but when they want something, suddenly the schedule magically opens up. They're all ready to do the hearings next week with Jay Clayton, and they're going to go quick on that because, of course, all of this election integrity stuff is vital to keep the uniparty and the system going. You've even got John Cornyn yesterday calling our man Scott Presler a grifter because he went and chatted with him at the airport. I just had a conversation with John Cornyn at the airport. I was very gracious and asked him to pass the Save America Act. He comes and says grifter. Not going to work. We're going to get the votes. We're getting more and more details about the steal in LA. Here's what we know. Tens of thousands of Spencer Pratt voters are now receiving rejection letters from the county clerk saying their ballots were not counted due to signature irregularities. So they just upped the failure rate of signatures on that. Meanwhile, you could be Kirby and sign with pictures on the Democrat ballots. So it was like 20 votes. I understand there's going to be a reasonable margin of error, but it's 18,000 votes, all for Pratt, rejected. Not an accident. And indeed, the moral high ground is lost again here by people who are going to defend a democracy, but they can't. So again, national security and election security are becoming more and more the same thing. I've been telling people this for a long time now. Trump has never needed the Senate to pass the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act is being used as a club to beat the cheating Democrats over the head. Right before Trump reveals the evidence of the stolen election in 2020, the Iran peace deal is almost complete. That will clear the stage for the election fraud conspiracy to be front and center. Everything is about to change. Tune out all the panicans. Follow everything he's doing closely. History is being made, my friends. That's what I'm seeing. And not only that, we're going to keep getting more details. It's not just, it's not just learning about the election interference, not just about international stuff. It's not just about Epstein. We're getting deeper and deeper into all of this stuff. Here we see again, Vance Bolter yesterday pled guilty. He's the assassin working for Waltz. Vance alleged in his manifesto that Tim Waltz ordered him to kill Democrat lawmakers. So Vance Butler here is going to go down. It looks like, remember, she's the only Democrat rep to vote against taxpayer-funded healthcare for illegals in Minnesota. She was a deciding vote, and she was the last vote she cast before she was killed. Never forget. So I told you we're in for a summer of revelations. They're coming. They're coming. And it's not just that, right? Go back to the CIA story with the gold, right? Here's Glenn Beck talking about the gold story. Another really important one. We're learning more about the CIA. All of this declassification is going to become obvious over the next little while. Here is Glenn Beck talking about the gold guy,
who was just nabbed. He had gold bars.
And I told you already that this was super suspicious because there's no such thing in the CIA as we didn't know he was a criminal. They do their own screening. They know exactly what's going on. They know as much as they want to know, right?
He had all kinds of stuff. It looks like now he was running his own CIA kind of program. And he was setting up his own spy agency. What the hell is this story? Jason, you've been following this. What the heck? What is this?
I thought this hit peak what the heck is going on in the CIA when we first heard about the story. But when you first heard about the story, if you recall, they had gotten this guy that was in the CIA, and they found gold bars in his house. And we were like,
right.
Normal corruption? What's this all about? Well, the story today via the Washington Post said that he was doing a little bit more than just collecting gold bars. He had constructed his own special access program, what's called a SAP. So basically, the way the top secret system works, the classification system works, multiple people have top secret clearances, which means you have the ability to know pretty much anything. But the way they give the need to know is they provide certain categories and a SAP designation. So if you don't have the need to be read into this, you can eventually be read in, but you're going to be excluded from this information. Well, he somehow constructed his own special access program within the government. I don't know how you do that, but I don't know how you do that unless you have...
Well, wait. You don't know how you do that, I'm assuming you're going to say, unless you have all kinds of help from the inside, right?
That's where I was going. Yes.
Right. Yeah, okay.
But, I mean, you would think that, okay, so this guy probably wasn't read into anything else, probably wasn't involved with anything. Well, that is wrong as well. He worked at the CIA's Directorate of Science and Technology. He also worked with a program involved of, quote, continuity of government operations, or programs to keep the federal government running in the event of nuclear war and natural disasters or catastrophes. This is how, Glenn, you get the stuff that we're like, okay, I'm just going to throw out some wild ones, but like how, people are like, how do you have like, stuff like aliens getting through administration after administration or whatever, or let's get away from that. Black ops programs that nobody else in the government knows about. Isn't it because the CIA is just doing CIA things and this is how it operates?
Yes. This is the deep state. This is what, I'm telling you, the CIA is out of control. Ricky.
Jason and I were very excited about this story in the meeting. One thing we forgot to mention is that he reported to the #2 Pentagon official. So it's not like this guy is just doing these operations willy-nilly on his own. And it's also not probably a coincidence or an accident that he's one of the few people that's been publicly charged with a crime that used to work for the CIA. The CIA wants you to know this. Also, these guys have to pass really strict psychological exams. And now I'm wondering if the test is, you got to be psycho in order to work for the CIA.
I think so. You watched, have you watched the Bond series? With Daniel Craig? You watched all those? Okay. Yeah. So you remember what M used to say? If we can control him. We got to get somebody who's badly damaged because that's the only kind of guy that's going to do this work. And we can.
So we get it. There's going to be a new understanding of what the CIA is up to, and it's deliberate. We're going to find out what the deep state is. This is why declassification is in the news. Now you're going to see the attempt to spike declassification. You're going to see the attempt to pollute the waters around this stuff, to confuse and all that. And some people are saying that Steven Spielberg movie coming out this weekend is a bit of that. I've mentioned this guy before, Jonathan Pajot. Jonathan Pajot is probably one of my favorite YouTube content creators. He's from right here in Quebec. He's the guy who did, all my work on Nigel Heil Hitler and Kanye West and the World War II consensus and the Nakamoto consensus frame. He didn't do the Nakamoto consensus, but he's big on this World War II consensus frame. A lot of it's from him that I get this from. And mythology, religious guy. He did a bunch of videos on the Kanye West video last year. And he went and saw yesterday, Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg movie. And he says, I promise no spoilers as much as possible, but here's the basics for Disclosure Day. It is one of the most shocking pieces of propaganda I have seen in a while. It is the last call of the World War II consensus. Aliens are your saviors and empathy is the only virtue. In a post-Epstein world, it dares have a story of children seduced and kidnapped by aliens, pretending to be Disney-style animals, taken to Hansel and Gretel's house. This is what it is called in the movie. To be imbued by aliens in a way so traumatic that they forget and repress it until they are adults, only to discover that this initiation has given them the power to see people's secret thoughts, pretend to be other people and use that to manipulate, make things in plain view disappear, translate foreign and alien languages, be a passenger for the aliens' message to the world. This is nothing to say about its take on Christianity and the suggested apostasy around accepting these beings. Then finally, the entire movie is a final desperate appeal to the traditional media as the only purveyors of truth. The entire drama of the film is a man who is irrefutable video proof of aliens looking to release it. The whole movie is a series of chases against the evil corporation that wants to keep it hidden. He ends up releasing it on the evening news. Yes, you heard me. He releases it on the evening news, which is then transmitted to all the traditional media companies that are named: ABC, CNN, Fox News. Anyone under 70 will realize that the movie could have ended in 10 minutes with a laptop and Wi-Fi. It is really mad. Don't go see it. So Steven Spielberg's last movie is going to be a huge failure, I think. Because we don't want to hear the fucking slop anymore. We don't want to hear the boomer shit. We don't want to hear about how Europe is so much nicer than America. That was a fucking boomer slop thing. We're in the goddamn American golden age. The golden age brought to you by America, made in fucking America, you goddamn European losers, you fucking boomer losers. And here, just watching the World Cup and all these people come around and have their minds blown by America. This ain't 1994 anymore. Here you're just seeing America in a nutshell. Freddie having his way. The most surreal thing of our trip so far, currently driving towards Louisiana, and the radio station we were listening to started talking about our trip and played Ella Langley especially for us. And they're recording it and fun stuff.
I don't know if he flew in. Where did he fly into? Florida, driving to Houston, I believe, something like that. He stayed in Fairhope, Alabama last night. He's been at Bass Pro Shop today. He's been to, I believe, Buc-ee's, and he's documented it all on Twitter. So if you go to Twitter or X, you look him up at Freddie LA7. So FREDDY LA7, Freddie LA7. But anyways, he's become an Ellis fella. He's become a huge fan of Ella Langley, and he shared on his X account last night 2 different occasions that he was listening to WXBM, and Ella Langley was on. So thank you for listening, Freddie. Hopefully.
So cool. So America. And you're seeing it across the board. Here's I'm not going to get the audio through twice, but here is the most American, typical American, what do you call it? The most American, I'm going to call it aesthetic that you can have, which is an ice cup, a cup full of ice. I want to actually bring up one more for this. Nobunanga. You guys know the Nobunanga? I'll play this audio so you can hear it. He's just found out about free, I've told him many times that the most American thing out there is the nonstop ice. And it's like, no one in the world gets it. You go to Europe and you say, can I have ice in this drink? And they give you like a cube. And they're like, no. Fill the cup with ice and then put a little liquid in it, and then I'll get more, right? Because they don't have free refills, right? That's part of the logic here. Here's an Italian discovering what the true golden age is with the unlimited ice and free refill.
Yeah. You want one Coke Zero or 2?
I can refill this 1,000 times.
Yeah, but you won't drink 1,000 cups of Coca-Cola.
You don't know me. And it's free.
You paid for it. You paid it.
Once.
Bro, slow down. Slow down.
It's cold.
Fabio, slow down. Slow down. Why?
That was good. Because it's free. Yes, please. Thank you. I'm in paradise. Brother, cheers. Another one. Should I finish this one too?
Bro,
I'm gonna explode.
That's too much sugar. You don't need that.
That's true, but it's free.
So just seeing people experience American abundance is great. Here's Nobunanga. I don't know if you guys, it's just a great account. But watching all these, people enjoying the American aesthetic, the American lifestyle, it's part of the vibe shift, right? And here he is describing the ice, which I just love. USA, a diner. I ordered a cola, and they handed me a cup that was 90% ice. I have learned how to measure an American's honor. The drink came up in a cup the size of my helmet, inside a mountain of ice. And somewhere beneath it, a rumor of cola. I tilted it. The ice did not move. It was load-bearing. In Japan, a few cubes politely. Here, an avalanche. And once I stopped being confused, I was moved. Ice is not free. Someone must make it, store it, guard it through the heat. To bury a man's drink in it is not stinginess disguised. It is the opposite. It is a Lord opening his treasury and saying, take all of it. Take more than you need. I have so much that I do not even count. The ice is the boast. The drink is just the excuse to deliver it. So now I judge every establishment by the ice, a weak handful, and I know the house is humble, careful, perhaps struggling, a roaring glacier, and I know I'm in the presence of abundance, and I bow before I drink. The waiter came to refill me. He lifted the scoop, and he gave me more. I had not finished. He gave me more anyway. I nearly stood and saluted. Most generous, I told him. Your house is rich beyond measure. I said, you want less ice next time, buddy? Less ice, as if I would insult him by refusing his treasure. I told him no. I told him to bury me. I drank for 40 minutes. The cola lasted 4, right? Too good. I wonder if I can find, there is a Mark Twain about ice cubes and Americanism. I don't think I can find it. Oh yeah, no, it is here. Mark Twain famously identified the national devotion to ice water as the only true universal specialties that could be called broadly American. He observed that this unique obsession with icy refreshment was a staple of American culture that continually baffled uninitiated Europeans. And it's true. We've been, I've known this for my whole life, and I've been, years I've known about this quirk. While Twain was most famous for praising ice water, the concept of ice cubes and decorative ice in American culture was also evolving during his lifetime because they invented it, you retards. What are you talking about? So here we get a European enjoying our Americanness, and we got more statues of the founders in the Rose Garden. The Golden Age coming into view, folks. We love the Golden Age. Here's what people are doing for the 250th. The vibes are going to take over the country. This is in New Jersey. If you're around New Jersey today, this is in Monmouth Beach, New Jersey. Every town and every city should do this to their four corners. Much better than the summer 2020 Pride stuff. We love this. And here we see as well what's going on this weekend. The White House lawn fight night, Freedom 250. Weeks before America prepares to celebrate the 250th, we got the big fight this weekend. We're looking forward to it. That's what we got. Oh shit, I gotta go check it out. Escape the Matrix. Yeah, I was wondering if it was near your town. Not too far from me. I was wondering about that. Yeah, Nolan is secretly the dude running the White House. Not really, but I will have big news for you on that soon, though. I do have some big news coming about the White House and other things. Not quite capable of sharing it yet, but about to be official pretty soon. And you're all going to love it. There'll be no stopping me then. About 40 minutes. Yeah, very cool. The danger is that we are still in NATO and obliged to defend Canada. Nah, that's going to be done. Oh, we got Hank in the house, everybody. Let us say hi to Hank. How you doing, Hank?
Hooty hoo, it's Friday. How you doing, Nolan?
I love life. How was your time with Max and Stacy yesterday? I saw the highlights. That's great.
Always a dream, those
Great
two. They're
energy,
so
yeah.
fun. They're fun. We had a fun game that we played. You know, I like my games here on the show, so it was a great
Safe or
time.
not
They're always
safe?
a blast.
They play safe or not safe?
We played a game I made for them called Orange Pill or Poison Pill.
No, they're very good.
They're bad, one of those. I've got games like that. We actually have Eric Balchunas on the show this morning too, and we have a fun game we're going to play with him too. So
We love Eric.
yeah, it's great.
Fun.
Yeah.
Fun.
So what's going on in the Great Awakening this morning? How are you enlightening the masses this fine day?
We talked about the SpaceX IPO and what a big deal that is, and how it's not like people are trying to run fundamental analysis on this, like like there's math.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. You're betting on an optimistic vision of the future, and that's really what the whole game is now. It's about, do you have an optimistic idea of where the world's headed? And, you know, because we're not really in a world anymore of logic and reason. And, you know, the Iran war was a great example of that. Like trying to analyze this with typical means was not the way we were going to do it. It was about what we can get out of this in the long run. Looks like everyone's going to go away happy from the Iran situation. And
maybe we've heard this 38 times before, mind you.
Yeah,
literally 38.
Yeah, but have you ever tried to buy a rug off a Persian? You know, that's
I have it. Well, not Persian, Moroccan.
Same
Moroccan.
idea.
I don't know if it's the same thing.
Same
Okay,
idea. Yeah. It goes on and on and on. There's, you know, that was weirdly a Canadian invention. Fixed prices for things.
What?
Yeah. That was so the original department store in all of America was in Toronto called Eaton's. I actually know the family.
Oh.
And that's
nice.
why you still have a few Eaton's shopping malls in Canada. There's no more. It's like, you know, Macy's, whatever these department stores.
Sears.
Yeah, they're all gone. There's no more of them. But they still own the malls, so it's still called an Eaton Center, and they're in all the big cities in Canada.
Nice.
So that was the thing. They made a catalog, and it was no negotiating prices. Because everything before that, like they were the first to put an actual price tag, and that was it. Everybody followed them, but it was a big destination for Americans because they hated the constant negotiations every time they went to the early American department stores, but Bloomingdale's and Macy's and all of them copied this Canadian model. So that's what sent this whole fixed price thing into reality. Canada has two of them. Hudson Bay is the oldest company in the Western world. But they didn't do fixed prices. They were negotiators of wholesale furs and stuff like that for gold. But the first store that had a catalog, and you know, it's actually a famous story in Canadiana where there was a famous book written for children about the hockey sweater. It was actually on our $5 for a while, where a writer talked about a kid whose mom wrote to Timothy Eaton. That was his name because he used to, you know, he was like a character, like Dave at Wendy's or whatever. And so he was on the catalog because the Sears catalog came from them too. They had the catalog. Yeah, all of that. They invented all of that.
Yeah. How far we've come? Oh, go ahead, continue. Go ahead.
So the guy orders the Montreal Canadiens Rocket Richard #9 jersey, but they mistakenly send him a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey. So in his little town in Quebec, he's like tortured, right? And it's a funny story about the mom writing a letter to Mr. Eaton, you know, and the wrong package. And it's sort of almost like a foundational cultural document in Canada about the book and the ordering and the price and, you know, stuff. Yeah.
I was going to say, so we went from bartering to fixed price to now we have the horrible thing that is like flex pricing, especially on flights and stuff, you know, where it's like they're tracking you and then they raise it higher. They say they don't do that, but they definitely.
It's fucking terrible. What you have to do to get a flight now, and you got to use VPNs. You got to go to India. Like
it's crazy.
You got to get Indian Wi-Fi, and then you can race your cafe, and it's terrible. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
It's really bad. I don't like it. I like it. I long for the days of the fixed pricing. It was I go to Sears, I'd get my family photo taken. Maybe I'd buy a washing machine while I was there. It was a good time.
Yeah. Well, now so the good news is we're going to get low prices on gas in America for the summer, and you're going to be able to go around anywhere you want, and you don't have to fly. So that's the good.
I hope so. I still am very skeptical of all this because I don't trust Trump will still skin as far as I can throw him. But I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
Peace in our time, friend. Peace in our time.
That's right. Peace and love, baby. I love it. Cool. Well, Nolan, I'm going to let you finish up, my man, and I'll be excited to chat with you next week. Enjoy your weekend, and
see you later.
Stay tuned. We're coming up next. Yeah. Thanks.
All right, everyone. You heard it. Eric Belkinas will be over there. Stick around. Happy Friday, Hankosaurus. Indeed. Okay, folks, I am getting out of here. Predator says 2 weeks. Maybe we'll see. I think we're in the golden age. T-Dog Yo says having some Tabasco with my breakfast burrito in honor of the Great Awakening. You know, the only thing I don't love Tabasco on is eggs, believe it or not. A lot of people love it on eggs. I don't eat it on eggs. I don't eat it. It's not a thing I love. I'm not a big egg guy anyway, but I don't go to the Tabasco with the eggs. I have. It's just not something that I make a big habit of. So there you go. Okay, folks, I'm about to cut the broadcast. I'll see you later on the Canada show in 2 hours. Drop in there. For now, you're going to see the logo. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend if you don't come around. Peace, 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 peace.